Hey everybody, welcome back to the Optometry Money Podcast. We're helping ODs all over the country make better and better decisions around their money, their careers, and their practices. I'm your host, Evon Mendrin, certified financial planner and owner of Optometry Wealth Advisors, an independent financial planning firm just for optometrists nationwide. And on today's episode, I am thrilled and excited to welcome to the podcast Dr. Brianna Rhue. Dr. Rhue is the optometrist and owner at West Broward Eye Care Associates. She is also the co-founder of Dr. Contact Lens. And we talk all about how to improve the contact lens sales process in the practice and make it much more patient-centric. We talk about how to remove the frictions in the whole patient experience and customer experience, and doing that in a lot of ways with technology. And so this conversation was a lot of fun for me. Hopefully you'll find it helpful as well. If you have any questions, of course, reach out to Brianna. You can also reach out to myself at Evon, E-V-O-N, at optometrywealth.com. You can check out the links and resources mentioned in the episode in the show notes, which you can find at the Education Hub at my website, www.optometrywealth.com. And while you're there, check out all the other resources, articles, episodes we've done. And you can also feel free to schedule a no-commitment introductory call to talk about what's on your mind financially and to learn how we serve optometrists all over the country, master their cash flow, proactively plan around taxes, and navigate their most important financial decisions. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Dr. Brianna Rhue. And welcome back to the Optometry Money Podcast. I am your host, Evon Mendrin, and I am delighted and excited to welcome to the show Dr. Brianna Rhue. Brianna, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Evon.
I really appreciate it. And you are the wearer of many hats. You are an optometrist. You, of course, work in your own practice, but you're also a co-founder of a tech company and a tech entrepreneur. What hat are you primarily wearing these days? Like, if you were to introduce yourself to someone, what's the primary hat now that you like to wear these days?
So I am the CEO of Dr. Contact Lens, and then, as you had mentioned, also have a private practice. Today happens to be a very big day in that private practice, as I had a 7-year buy-in, buy-out with my partner, and that is now coming into that 7 years. So if you don't think time passes, it passes real quick. It'll sneak up on you. I'm also a wife and a mom of a 6-year-old and an 18-month-old boy, or 2 boys. So I'm a boy mom. Really, that I wear a lot of hats. Mostly I like that living in that CEO of that patient driver. Then for the Dr. Contact Lens, those relationship management and business development, and seeing kind of all of those seeds come to fruition of a lot of these conversations that I get to have behind the industry and how that can benefit optometry and optometrists to better run their business. So that's where I like to live.
Interesting. And I'm excited to chat with you today about, one of the primary things I think we want to get into is how do practices improve that contact lens buying experience to be more patient-centric. And I think as a result of that, more profitable for the practice. But before we dive into all of that fun, let's get a little bit more of your background. What got you into optometry initially?
So I've really been an optometrist, I want to say, since 2nd grade. I couldn't see the board as a kid. And fortunately, my parents on a trip to South Dakota realized that I couldn't see very well. And then I was a very young user of contact lenses at that age. So in 3rd grade, I got contact lenses. I was a dancer and a gymnast, and my glasses were always broken. And that really changed my life, just an outlook, obviously, for vision, but also let me be who I was self-esteem wise as a young, skinny girl with a giraffe neck, right? So what we wanted to do there is I was able to work in 2 of my dad's friends were very successful optometrists. And I always saw myself as being a doctor. I just asked my mom this the other day. I was like, when did you think Brittany was going to be a teacher, which is my sister? And when did you think I was going to go down this path? And she's like, you knew really early on that you wanted to go somewhere in the medical field. I thought it was orthodontia because I loved my, how my teeth turned out from orthodontia. And then fell in love with optometry. And then even now on the back end, have really fallen in love with the business side of medicine and realized that we're really all the pawns in the system. And if we learn this side of the business, we're, small business owners that happen to be optometrists. So growing up with my father and my mother, who both were entrepreneurs in a small business, really optometry is super special with what we get to do. So I've been an optometrist for a long time.
It's interesting how many stories that I hear about optometrists who get into it because they were a consumer of eye care themselves. Like they saw in their own lives how important improving or just having good vision was, either as kids, they had good experiences with other optometrists. Like they saw the importance of that in their own lives like you did, and it led them down that career path. And you've sort of blended that together, that fascination together with the business experience that you saw with your dad and in your family. So that's really interesting. And so you graduated in, I think, 2009, is that right, from optometry school? Took a residency. How did you get connected to that first opportunity to work in the private practice, which I think is the same one you're working in today, right?
It is. So I fortunately on this last week, I had the third year optometry students actually got bused to my practice and got to kind of go in and do a little tour, and seeing that third year optometry student energy of, you just don't know that the world is about to hit you in the face, right? That excited energy living there. So I always try to live there where I'm always a student. And then graduating, doing my residency, I, asked them, raise your hand if you're doing a residency. And only about 40% of the hands went up. If I look back, it's really, I've been that relationship person where somebody would come and talk to our school and I would try to go shadow them, right? Because now you're not a threat to that person and they're willing to share all of their knowledge. And then had the opportunity to do my student rotation at Bascom Palmer, got accepted to the residency there. And the doors that has opened has continued to do so. And I think that you really have to, as a student, continue to plant those seeds. And they're still opening from that 12, 13, 14 years ago of that 1 year. So when we're investing in ourselves, you've invested this much in 4 years of your school. What's one more year? And then now you're investing in a practice. So I got connected to this practice from my residency, decided to stay in South Florida, and away we are here and now owning all of this practice.
I know, buying it full circle. Now you've completing that buyout. That whole process has sort of come full circle for you. And how important is it for a student to go through that residency versus just get into the workforce? Because I would imagine, they've gone through 8 years of school. They're ready to sort of live a little bit, earn a little bit. They've got student loans on their mind, maybe some other career goals. Like, how important do you feel that residency is to taking that career further? What are your thoughts on that?
I just think you never know where you want to end up. So whether it is private practice, working in a commercial setting, going into industry, being a speaker or on advisory boards or things like that for where you want to go, you never know what your career is going to take you. It's not just being in a dark room saying what's better, one or two, right? You can do that for only a certain amount of time before you start figuring out what your niche is, right? Mine being scleral lenses, then into myopia management, and then now this path of the technology piece to the business. You can't shut doors, right? And I think that opportunity gives you so many things on becoming a fellow, on, learning how to write papers. It's only 1 more year. And if I look back to it, that was the most critical year of setting myself up for a career for the next 30 to 35 years, right? So I think we get really short-sighted on, I got this big student loan. I want to get out and start making money. You start making, those first 5 years only sets you up for what you're going to make in the last 15 years of your career. It's just, we have to switch it. And so it's about an investment in yourself and your future.
Yeah. And those, it's not just that education, but like you said, it's the ability to then connect with your peers and find those doors that may open. Like you're saying, over a decade later, still from that year in residency. Interesting. And eventually then your work in private practice led to you co-founding Dr. Contact Lens. And I think that was in 2017. Was that right?
Yeah.
What led to you adding on to the responsibilities of working with your patients and working in the practice and with your being with your family to then start a tech company serving optometry practices? What led to that?
Yeah. So my best friend and girlfriend and colleague, we went to school together, Jennifer Tabiza. We both live this parallel lives. So I'm in Florida, she's over in California, and we really just had this brain session and brain power where we could always force each other or push each other to be better. And one thing that came up, we both closed on our practices literally a week apart, and we're doing it again, like now come full circle. We knew that there had to be something more than us just in our practices, and wanted to really figure out how we could be there more for our patients. And one thing that came up time and time again was contact lenses, right? Your patient sits down, says, this is the best eye exam I've ever had. Can I have a copy of my prescription? Well, that was fun. Like, that super sucks for both the patient and myself. I can't serve them. And then in return, they're not serving me. So I don't feel taken care of. And then they don't feel taken care of. So we wanted to close that. So she, in a passing, she's like, hey, you want to build an app where our patients can order contacts from us? And I was like, perfect, we're going to have this done in 2 months. Well, 3 years later of programming and lots of tears and lots of money, we had our first iteration of Dr. Contact Lens. And so we wanted to understand really the inner workings of the practice. And we knew that if I sold a 6-month supply of contacts, why was I not the one reminding them? If the patient walked out, why wasn't I giving them a chance to order from me? Or if they're due for their exam, why am I not the one actually making it easy for them to do business with us? So we really looked at the friction from both the staff, the patient, and the doctor's perspective. And then here we are with Dr. Contact Lens.
Yeah, so I think that's so interesting. You mentioned friction there, and I think just thinking about my own business, and then as a consumer of eye care and other stuff, like I feel like so many of our decisions in our businesses should be around like, how do we just remove frictions from patients doing stuff with us? From how do we make it as easy as possible, take out roadblocks, annoyances, whatever frictions are there that keeps patients from scheduling with us, from coming in into our office, to interacting with us, to seeing the optometrist, to going through pre-testing, to then purchasing the things that they should be doing from us. Like, how do we just remove all those frictions and make it as easy and seamless as possible? So when you think about the like, I don't know, we'll call it traditional contact lens sales process, and you were seeing these issues that were leading patients to walk with their prescriptions, what did that look like? What does that still look like today? What did you experience with that led to that outcome? Eventually, you giving that great exam, but patients still taking their prescriptions and walking to somewhere else.
Yeah, so the friction, a lot of the times we think it's about price when it comes to our patients, who then at that moment in time are a consumer, right? We have to understand that what we do and what we sell is a consumer product, right? It happens to be a contact lens, and it's becoming commoditized. So that means that opens up room for competition. Mm-hmm. What I want optometrists to understand is you are the competition. You've got the patient that is right there in front of you. And every online retailer is hoping that you mess up that transaction, which we do 35 to 40% of the time. That's a lot. So how can you make that friction for the patient where maybe they didn't want to come back and pick up their lenses? Maybe they didn't have, $1,000 to drop right there on your practice doorstep, and they want to go home and think about it and do it in the comfort of their home where they're not pressured, right? So I was president at the time of the Broward County Optometric Association. We knew that the FTC rule was coming at us, where we had to physically hand a copy of a patient's prescription to them. You can do this digitally, but now it's inside of an ordering process for the patient. So when if you go through the steps of ordering for a practice, when everything is shipped back to the practice, it's 28 steps. You are using a human resource to do a mundane task that takes 6 to 8 minutes to process a single order, right? You've got to go into your EMR, maybe click a button that goes to your distributor. That box comes back. You have to figure out who it belongs to, slap a right left sticker on it, call the patient 20 times. They come back in at 5 o'clock. Now you're paying overtime because you have to find where those contacts are, dispense it to the patient, maybe take payment again for that patient to go away, right? Same thing for the patient. The patient has to get back in their car, park their car, come back in,
I don't want to
wait
do
in
any of this the
line.
way you're
Like,
describing it.
it's horrible, right? So Amazon has created such an easy experience, which is
Yes.
why we're all doing it. So what I don't like that we're doing is saying this whole price comparison thing, right? Okay, we're going to match what 1-800 is selling or what these other processors are. Now I just put into the patient's head that I'm not cheaper than these places. And they may not have even been thinking about that.
Yeah.
So we have to get to the psychology of this with the friction and removing it. So send them a link, all of their data loads, and away they can go. And it's one process for everybody, one process for your patient, one process for your staff. And now you as the doctor can start capitalizing on it.
Amazon is maybe the perfect example of all this because as a consumer, like literally never want to go into a physical store anymore because Amazon has made it so convenient. And I don't even price check Amazon anymore.
Nope.
I know I can pull up my app, search for whatever I want with one click, buy it. It shows up at my house tomorrow, maybe today at rare occasions, even today. I never want to do a less convenient thing than what Amazon provides me anymore. I think a lot of times as a consumer, I wonder if a reason that patients are walking with their prescriptions is not because they don't trust the practitioner, they don't trust the optometrist, not because they don't want to buy from you, but because it's just easier to take their prescription and purchase online. It's just more convenient. Mm-hmm. And if you're mentioning that 30 to 40% of opportunities are lost, I mean, my goodness, do the math. Like what is a potential revenue and profit per interaction? And what are you missing out on with that huge percentage?
Yeah. And that's Evon, it comes to customer acquisition, right? And patient acquisition cost. Yeah. So these are all things that you can look at. So we know when we do lose the sale, that one of these other online consumers spends about $125 to get that patient information. We had it and we gave it away, right? And so what I'm seeing happen as we have other technologies popping up, like Dr. Contact Lens, that happen to be free, right? Free does not give you freedom to run the business like you need to. So with Dr. Contact Lens, it's all about the data, and we have to understand what's sitting in our practices, yet go after it. So by signing up for a direct to manufacturer, and then now you have this ordering process or this ordering process, and this distributor brings you this one, right? Within my business, I have been able to move through all of these distribution channels, right? In one click of a button. And I'm using the data myself to benefit my business. My reps aren't telling me how to run my business, right? They help me, but I now have the knowledge behind the data to make an educated decision. And you should pay for that, right? So don't give this whole free thing. You're not going to rebate yourself to wealth. You're not going to save yourself to wealth. You've got to invest in technologies that are bolt-ons to your practice management softwares in order to run your business.
So a couple of things I want to talk more about that you mentioned are customer acquisition costs and the importance of controlling your own data. Because like you said, our patients are already there. I think it's Dr. Ryan Gustis who was on this podcast, and I've heard him say, like, for the most part, your patients want to buy from you.
They do. You
know, there's people who, of course, come into the office already wanting to find just the cheapest deal, whatever. That's fine. But for the most part, I think your patients, from what I've heard, your patients want to buy from you. They're already there. You've put in the cost to market to them, to bring them to the office. You've already earned the trust through that interaction. They want to know what's next, and you just have to guide them to that next decision and make it seamless for them.
And that's what we're doing at Dr. Contact Lens. So what we've really done, right, is we're connecting the RX back to the patient's health. So it's really that circle of business that we have to complete.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at it, the patient sits there, had this great experience, and now they want to walk, to somewhere else. You haven't completed that cycle of business. So you have to look for the friction. Don't get upset that your competitor is going to take them. Be the competition.
Yeah.
And realize that you are the competition, because you are. And you have to invest in that. So I think in this industry, it's been really shoved down our throats to save, right? You save $1 here, you get 20% off of here, you get a rebate if you hit 50 pairs of this, right? We are never going to save or rebate ourselves to wealth.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a free technology and get anything out of it behind customer service, patient experience, practice experience. So you're going to pay for those things. But by doing that and investing in those things, now you're able to go in and see what's in there and now go after it. Mm-hmm. So it's upping your game, and you have to do that not with human resources, but with the implementation of technology and soon AI, right? It's going to make us more human, these things, where I can actually interact with the patient versus sitting there clicking for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
That is an interesting thing about technology, in that I think a lot of service professionals have been afraid of technology because it's going to replace them. I think that's sort of the fear in a lot of ways, is that, oh my goodness, online refractions, whatever the tech might be. And this is not just optometry. This is and I see this in other professions too, but they're afraid because they're afraid that the technology is going to replace them. I've seen this in my own profession. What has happened over the years is that good forward-thinking business owners adopt that technology, that same technology that many are afraid of in their own businesses. And turns out it makes their whole service better, and it makes their whole business better, because they can, like you just said, eliminate some of the stuff that either humans aren't good at doing or no human should waste any time doing.
Exactly.
And it allows the people in your business to do people stuff better, human stuff better, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And technology, not even AI, can replace your human-to-human interaction with your patient,
right?
And understanding their needs, responding to their needs, prescribing as needed, giving them the medical recommendations they need for their own eye care. You can't replace that, but you can use technology to make every other part of your business potentially work a lot better. Yeah. And let's talk about like how your system works, how Dr. Contact Lens works from both the patient and the practitioner's perspective. Like, how does it even work?
Yeah. So sign up process is super easy. You can learn more at drcontactlens.com. So I don't want this to be a shameless plug. I want you to go look at other things, right?
Yeah.
But what we do is we wanted to implement with the electronic medical records. So once I'm done writing the prescription, all of that information pulls over: patient's first name, last name, date of birth, email address, phone number, their RX, right? So now I'm able to text them, upload their vision plan benefits, upload that rebate, and invite the patient. Now that patient logs in just an easy click of a button, because it's all HIPAA compliant based on the record. Patient logs in, they can see that, hey, a year's supply is X. Oh, my vision plan benefits here, great. My rebates here, great. My address is here, great, right? I don't have to go through a 12-step process. They click order. That goes directly to the distributor that you work with, their pick, pack, and ship line, and sends the patient the tracking. You can also see which ones are back ordered. And then you can go and build the vision plans. For the practice, what it does is we're able to go back in time 1, 2, or 3 years and pull in all these patients. And it shows you who's due to come back and see you, who's due to reorder, and then who's coming up to go into one of those buckets, and automatically reminds the patient to either reorder or make an appointment with you. So it's also interesting looking at the statistics on when we're talking about friction, right? On how easy is it for patients to make an appointment with you? Nobody wants to call you anymore. They want to see what appointment times you have available and make their own appointment. None of this back and forth texting and all of these things. I read a stat the other day. It was like 15% of us only offer live appointment scheduling. Like, guys, what are we doing here, right?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about human resources and bandwidth, it really comes to bandwidth in a practice. You've got to have your staff really getting on board with change. And that's what I see as the hardest thing. Our staffs are running our businesses because they don't want to change. You as the business owner have to be the leader of that and can't be scared, or your staff's going to be scared.
Well, and that goes back to your, I guess the theme of this is what you've talked about too, is making it customer centric, patient centric, because you're now, if you're thinking about, okay, what would make the patient experience easier to schedule, to work with me, to buy from me, then that's going to lead you a different direction, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, okay, how do we make this easier? Well, only for my staff, because ultimately these things will make it easier for, I think, everybody involved. I think these ultimately open up capacity and it will make everything easier for everybody. But when you're thinking about the customer centric experience, then that's going to lead you to a different set of questions in a different direction. So what you described was super easy. I'm hearing that. I'm saying, like, I want that. Like, you're gonna remind me when it's time to renew. You're gonna make it really easy for me after I see you to go home and purchase from you, not from somewhere else, but just from you. Like, that makes it seem super simple. What's the alternative? Like, what if a practice doesn't have that? Like, what's the alternative way of ordering for someone, of seeing when someone's due for a renewal, seeing when someone's due to come back into to the office? Like, what's the alternative to that?
Well, first off, let's jump into the numbers, right? So most of our colleagues, they think that their capture rate is very high, right? Industry standard tells us that it's 65% and it's dropping. When I do demos for our colleagues, a lot of the times they're like, no, I'm at 80, 85%. Let's give you that you're at 80%, right? If you saw 1,000 patients, contact lens patients, which is what the average OD will see in a year, and your capture rate's 80%, that means 200 patients walked out of your door. Just walked, times $300 a person of that value with that price tag over their head. So every time you print a paper copy of a prescription, which you have to do, or you can send it to them digitally, you are handing somebody a $300 bill to spend outside of your practice. So 300 times 200, you can do the math right there, is 50 grand that just walked out. And that's if your capture rate you think is really good. Do the numbers backwards and make it 65%, which it's dropping because it's already dropped about 3 or 4 points. Now, if you look at your annual supply rate, of the 800 patients that ordered from you, 400, let's say it's 50%. Industry standard tells us it's 25%. And I will tell you that's also dropping because we're fitting more expensive lenses. So even for you, if I came to you and was like, okay, your annual supply is $1,200 to have the best vision of your life, right? You probably don't have $1,200 to drop right there, and you're going to think about it, which means you're going to leave.
That's actually an instant, I'm going to go think about it.
Exactly, right? Yeah. But I have this rebate and I have this and I'm a small business. Please, no, guys, nobody cares, right? We have to make it easy. So going back to the numbers, 800 ordered something, right? Let's say it's 50%. That means 400 patients need to reorder from you, and you happen to know the date that they need to reorder from you, right? So send them that message. If you're putting it into Excel and you think that your staff is going to call back these patients, guys, like, it's not 2000 anymore, right? We're in 2023 here. We can utilize technology to do these mundane tasks that we can't bog down our staff with.
Right.
So again, if we come back to that 8 minutes, it's not being patient-centric, but also being staff-centric is super important, super critical, because they also want to grow. We want to grow as humans, right? We can't do the same thing every day and wonder why we don't have retention. You've got to give them the capabilities to learn and to grow and to bring you things as a business owner that are going to make their lives easier. And we don't even know that we have this problem, right? So you got to go poke holes in your systems and your processes and adopt the process.
You talked about data and being able to sort of control and to track some of this data. Like, what data is typically lost throughout this whole multi-step process that you just described? Is it the dates of renewal? Is it the revenue generated? Is it the amount of products sold? Like, what type of data is lost that practices really should think about? How do we track this more carefully?
It's all of the above that you just said. Okay. So it's the patients that are walking. You have no idea who walked, or did you invite them? You don't know when they're due to reorder, so you're not inviting them. And the other thing is just, it's not even that we're losing but I want to take it a step further. We're giving it away to other people that should be paying exponentially for this, right? So again, when we talk about rebating, if you're making a 4 or 5% rebate on something, to give all of this information away, to circumvent you eventually, right? Because all of this direct to consumer model, it is going to be there. We're just the barrier right now, right? So if we talk about friction, we're the friction a little bit here, right? Because we own the power of the pen. So if you start to own that and understand what's special about optometry is that you get to sell what you prescribe. And we need these advancements within technology to see this. The companies understand it. Facebook understands big data. Google understands big data. You've got it right there. So if we're talking about just one walking script, right? It's not the one that walked out of your door. It's the one that walked out of the 40,000 doors that makes these online retailers have the money to go after our patients and market to them. So I want us to think bigger than just our front door of our practice.
So it's like collectively, all of the leaks in every private practice everywhere is really what gives the power to these online competitors. Because even a little bit, a small percentage collectively is quite a huge number.
Yeah.
And how would, I guess, I would assume in a practice, there's data being collected in other parts of the business. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's Google Analytics, maybe it's financial information through the accounting software or the EHR. Like, how does what you're describing sort of work together with some of the other technologies so they can really look at it and use the information to make decisions?
So that's where we were able to make the connection at Dr. Contact Lens. So I think there's data means a couple of things, right? You have to be able to get it out of there, but then you got to be able to take it a step further and do something with it. And I think that's where a lot of these things get stuck. So we were able to go a step further and say, okay, these are all your patients that are due to come back and see you. Now invite them. Or these are all of your patients that are due to reorder. Now invite them, right? So if you just have the data, that doesn't mean anything. It's being able to do something to it where you can market to your patients. And what I'm seeing is a lot of our colleagues are giving up on contact lens sales. Guys, contact lens sales, those are your patients that spend the majority of money in your practice. If you look at your top 10% of spenders, right, it's your contact lens patients because they have the disposable income. They're your myopia control practices. That's what's going to create your dry eye practice. That's what's going to create your aesthetics practice. Or as you bring something else into practice, are those patients. So if I let that 35-year-old mom go to an online world because they didn't offer her this experience because she's got 2 screaming kids in the car, she doesn't want to come back, or she's got soccer practice to get to at 6 o'clock and homework and everything else, right? I don't have time to go pick up my contacts. So ship them to my house, number one. Don't even make it that. Like, porch pirates exist. I get it. They're very few and far between, right? We all got rings now. We all got this stuff. Right. Figure that out. It's not a big leaky bucket, I'll tell you that. But now coming back into it, how, again, can you be there for your patient? So it all comes full circle back to the data.
And you mentioned too, it's how you're reaching out to them. It's not phone calls. It's not putting a link on your website. Like you're texting them. Like, I've got my phone, with me basically 24/7, and I should not, but it's there. It's in my pocket. It's somewhere within arm's.
It's our third limb now. It's fine.
It's our third limb. So, you getting that to my, not even my email address, but you just getting that to my text messages would make it so much more easier for me to say, like, I need to do this. I need to act on it. And it's as easy as clicking on a link, then I'm going to probably follow through with that.
Yeah. What also is really interesting here, looking at the data. So a couple of things that we've seen even since 2023 started, right, is the 30 to 35% of orders patient orders come in between the hours of 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. Wow. I don't know about you, but I'm not open from 6 to 9 p.m. or 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 9 a.m., right? And then another huge chunk of orders that patients are placing themselves come in between 11:30 and 1:30 p.m. That's lunch break, right? So if you're closed for lunch or you have a staff training and patients can only call you to order, do you understand how much revenue you just lost by
Right.
having that staff lunch or being closed for lunch, right? And these are patients placing these orders, so we know the time that they're placing them. The other interesting thing is the bigger amount of dailies that you fit, the less annual supplies that you will fit, the higher percentage of premium dailies that you fit, the lower your annual supply rate is. So it's even more imperative that you have a reorder system that is the same across every lens that you fit, across every manufacturer, and then also for your staff. You can't have them going to 5 different websites to place orders.
Right.
Now you've just added another process or another step to that already mundane task, right? So we have to think about these little things. It's about, the pandemic, right? In 2020, we all went into survival mode, and we're kind of still in that fight or flight mode, where 2020 was supposed to be the year of the optometrist, right? We had these huge plans to be like, I don't even know why we were waiting for 2020. We could have been doing it way sooner, right? But here in 2023, now that we all know that we're going to most likely live through all of this and be here to live another day, we can now start planning again for 1, 3, 5 years for the future of our practices. It's not just survival tomorrow and making sure there's money in the bank account to pay the staff. We get to now go back to that 1 year, 3 year, 5 year vision. And this all wraps into it. So I want people to start rethinking in that goal mentality. And you got to build little things one brick at a time.
Yeah. Something I've heard you say is, optometrists can be the disruptors. It just, you need to put the time and the effort and the thought into taking that long-term outlook on your own profession and feeling confident in your own profession to where you would want to make these improvements that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. I think that's maybe a great place to sort of wrap this up. And we've talked about a lot of different things here, and I think a really important point to come out of this is that your patients want to buy from you, generally speaking. You just have to make it easy for them to do that. You've got to guide them to that decision and then make it seamless for them. Because when it's not seamless, when it's easier, it's like water running downstream. Like when it's easier for them to flow somewhere else, they're going to do that, right? Yes. They want to buy from you. So if you can make it simpler, and a lot of times it takes technology to do that. And, but as we sort of wrap up, Brianna, like what are some final thoughts that you want to share with either an optometrist that owns their practice that's hesitant to adopt new technology, or for someone who's just wondering, like, how do I look at my processes here and how do I improve them when I'm in the sales process for contact lenses?
Take it one thing at a time, right? So really here we're going into April, we finished another quarter, we're starting a new one, right? So think of what you're going to do for a month and then go from there. I have a whiteboard in my office. If you've not invested in a whiteboard, invest in a whiteboard. Just get your ideas out there and then get your staff involved with these things. So just put one thing on your plate at a time and perfect that, and then move forward. And you'll start to see that repay you within dividends. And it's not all going to be seamless, right? You have to ramp up a process. So anything is going to take time. You have to give it that time. And sometimes I've pulled the plugs on some things too, but I give it really our all and come back with what's the good, what's the bad, how could this improve? Not that we're just going to like axe this, right? Because then so many ideas will go by the wayside. So it's just step by step on doing a good job. And here I'll leave you with this. As the doctor is retiring from the practice, right? We've been having all of the patients write down what they loved about their experience with Dr. Garmizo. Every patient in here is saying, I loved the time that he took with me. I loved that he listened to me and didn't feel rushed, and that he looked me in the eye and was really there as a provider. So healthcare is human, and they respected that, the time and the nurturing that he gave them. That's why they're coming to you. An online eye exam cannot and will not do that. So you have something super, super special. That's what patients want, is an eye-to-eye experience with your staff, that the staff did a good job, that we were always investing in new things because they all compliment on it. Oh my gosh, you guys have the latest and greatest here. He was that doctor. That's why I went to work in this practice. People want that experience. You can't get mad that a product comes out online or into a store that has things that you don't have. You can't get mad at that, right? You got to up your game a little bit, and you can do it because you invested all of this money to take care of people's vision. So take care of your own.
I love that. Brianna, where can people find you, follow you, learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so they can find me on LinkedIn, really is the best place there. So Brianna Rhue on LinkedIn. Find us at drcontactlens.com. I'm also sharing, what I'm learning along this venture as both a wife, a mom, business owner, entrepreneur, tech startup founder, wearing many hats. And I love that I have conversations and get to have conversations like this with other people.
I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun for me. I think the miracle of how you juggle all of these things, maybe it could be a whole episode series on its own. Something we can all learn from. But I really appreciate your time today and just hearing your insights and all of this, because these are critically important things for any business owner to think about in and outside of optometry. So thank you for that. For the listener, let us know if you have any questions. You can reach out to either Brianna or myself. And with that, we will catch you all in the next episode. Take care.
Thank you.
Want more resources to help master your money? Check out the Education Hub on Evon's website at optometrywealth.com. Evon Mendrin is a certified financial planner and owner of Optometry Wealth Advisors, a California registered investment advisor. All opinions of Evon and his guests are their own. This show is for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for specific investment, legal, tax, or other decisions. Clients of OWA may own securities mentioned on this show.